a lot of different things for different people. Some think them to be the MTV generation, the others the Nintendo one. Still others think they're the trophy kids. But it's also important that millennials are playing a crucial role in the communications industry today. But it's not all hunky-dory. There seems to be a very high attrition rate among millennials who are exiting the PR industry when they're still in their 30s. So this panel discussion, we will be discussing why millennials are important, how they can be the drivers of change in the coming days, and why is there such a high attrition rate. Let me begin by introducing my panelists. We have Karan Bhujbal from MSL 2020. We have, good morning, Karan. We have Neha Mathur Rastogi from Bhujbal, who's the founder. We also have from Google Singapore, Roli. Thank you for making all the trip down here. And we have Agarwal from THRS. Thank you everybody for joining me here. I want to begin by asking you all, how did this journey begin? Was it by serendipity that you all discovered that you all just fell into it, or was it like a pure focus, you all knew this is exactly what you want to do? Karan, we can start with you.
That's the curse of sitting on the corner here. Okay, so firstly, of course it's a shame that there are so few of us over here, but that's because we were all partying till about 2:30 last night, so I guess we expected it. On the PR side, you know, I didn't do my mass communication, I did my MBA in marketing, and my campus to career story is that after doing my MBA in marketing, I was exploring options, and you know, I had a lot of BFSI options and they weren't seeming too cool. I just didn't see, you know, me being a fit over there. Then I heard about PR and I thought it was a very creative field. I honestly didn't know what exactly it was, but I thought it was a very creative field. And I met someone who, you know, who showcased it in that light. And, you know, I just joined PR and I've been loving it ever since.
So it's more by serendipity in your case. Neha, same question to you, but I think everybody wants to know, what does it feel like to be your own boss?
It's amazing. I think it's the best feeling ever. When you start out younger, I think there's a lot more time that you get learning things on your own and doing things on your own. And PR is one industry where you actually have the opportunity to do that because it's still growing in India. So there's a lot of space for young entrepreneurs over here. And but the way my journey started was on the other side, very planned. So it was when I was 19, I did my first internship with a Gilby PR. And I just loved it back then. And then went on to MICA doing PR and then joined Genesis was my style. So it was very, very focused on to PR right from the start, and I loved it right from the start as well. And the love hasn't gone down even one bit, it's only grown. So I'm just loving it. And of course, being my own boss is the best part of it.
Roli?
So I would say PR happened to me. I'm not a mass communications person. I am an English honors graduate, and if I had it my way, I would have become a journalist like you. But that was not to be. Instead,
it's a safe choice, let me tell you. You don't know how much money journalists make.
Well, okay, so we're not going to debate that. So I went on to do an MBA, and post that, similar to Karan, I actually ended up meeting this person who seemed to be doing some really creative, interesting work with technology companies in a PR consultancy called 2020 at that point. I always wanted to do communications, I wanted to not do sales, I wanted to do something which felt strategic, which was, you know, big picture at the same time with a lot of opportunity to execute. So that's how PR happened to me, and since then, I have taken some steps away from PR to, you know, freshen my perspective. So, having spent 11, 12 years in the industry, I want to say this is my second stint out of PR. And I've somehow always come back fresh.
Ishan, you have the last word.
Yes, I believe so. Morning, everyone. For me, it's been a very, very interesting journey to come to today where I do PR along with my colleagues. And it's interesting because I actually ended up doing PR without really recognizing that I was doing PR, because I was in consulting for most of my time, and then I started to run a hospitality business about a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And And PR for me was born as a sheer necessity to fulfill the delivery goals that we were promising our clients, and we just thought that in a consumer engaging time as we are in today, it was impossible to restrict ourselves to B2B channels if we had to meet those goals. We had to offer PR, and we had to begin. And it's turned out to be a great journey, and I must confess that I'm actually a bit partial now among all the things that we do to PR.
So you found out how important it is, how core it is to what you're doing, but might not be the right platform to say so, but PR is often, it has a lot of negative connotations to it. Sometimes it's even taken to be a pejorative. Let's talk about that. All of you saying that y'all like it, even if it happened by happenstance or something that y'all set out to do. Y'all like it now, y'all enjoy it. But why do you think there's so much of negativity around the word PR itself? And how core is it to what we do? You were saying that it's not something that you started out doing, but you understood how essential it was to what it was you're doing in the travel industry, the hospitality landscape. So.
Yeah, but like you said, why is it so interesting, or why we stuck to it? I think PR means different for different people. The huge term itself, I think we had this chat some time ago as well about the whole meaning of the term public relations and how it means different to different people. And for me, it stuck because it means something else, which means you could look at our understanding of policy or brand ethos or strategy of the brand. They are so much more explicit for me when I look at it from a public affairs or public relations point of view versus just sales and marketing. So it is really the big picture thinking, which is only achieved for us if we look at PR actively and continue to energize it.
Roli, the notion about PR is, you've got to be glib, there's a lot of glamour, glitz, but au contraire to popular belief, there's more to it than just that. To be a good PR professional, you have to be more than just savvy and ability to talk.
Absolutely. I would say where is the glamour, guys? I mean, if you look at our floor, tell me one person in one department that works probably as hard as this team does. With the kind of stakes that are involved here, right? With the ability to influence, and we're not going to talk about work-life balance, which doesn't exist. But I would take your question probably another way and say, what does it take to be a good PR professional, right? In my mind, there are three things that stand out, amongst other things. One would be strategic thinking, right? If you're somebody who can navigate between the macro and micro views, be able to understand the business and figure out a communication lever, PR is for you. If you're a good storyteller, right, I would say that's default, but I think sometimes people forget that the best stories are those that speak the language of the user. So if you're somebody who has a knack for consumer behavior, who has a knack for really identifying trends that exist out there, PR is probably a perfect profession for you. And thirdly, I would say, if you are someone who can engage, influence, and really be the eyes and ears for the organization, for the leadership, and bring that perspective in, instead of just being, a pushing function, you do very well in PR.
So there's the rigmarole part of it as well. It's just not the glamour. It's Neha, what is your experience with it? Or what do you think makes a good PR person?
I think the key over here is to stop thinking of yourself and the industry and everyone from the outside also needs to stop looking at it as being a PR agent to becoming a PR consultant. And that basically means exactly what Roli said, where you're genuinely adding value to the business of the client and you understand the client's business, and that's not easy. So it's definitely beyond the glitz and glamour, where you need to actually deep dive into what is it that I can do to impact my client's business via PR. And clients see through it now. Everyone knows what PR is now, so I don't think just making fancy presentations and doing a bit of a fancy talk is going to get you anywhere. And that's honestly where the value add needs to be. And answering your first question, I think PR has been a grey area and there have been a lot of myths about PR, maybe negative connotations as well, because there's no in-hand end product really. You know, it's a lot of behind-the-scenes work that you do, and the client sees an impact, and the impact comes from the media, but then somewhere in between there is that PR conduit, which goes unnoticed, and that's why that value add is really important. And slowly, I think people are beginning to understand that, appreciate it. Global companies coming in have played a very big role because they already understand and appreciate it. So we are getting there, definitely.
I think it starts with the definition of PR. You know, most of us are PR professionals over here, and for all the senior people who were on stage yesterday, who were amongst the crowd, you probably have your punchline, so to say, your tagline established that, hey, you're a PR professional, what do you do? But for a millennial, and that's my perspective, there's a lot cooking up there when you describe what you're doing as a PR professional. And what it means is that you have a lot of funny encounters. So I met this person, and a young guy, younger than me, and he said, what do you do? I said, I'm a PR professional. And he said, you know, he gave a very strategic look. Then he said, party ke bahut passes milte honge aapko. And I said, no, not really. Actually, specifically in my case, not at all. And then he sort of just shrugged away and gave me a look that, damn, he's a PR professional and doesn't even get party passes. So I think it starts with that, you know, that definition of PR, but it also gives you an opportunity. You know, it's like this movie, you know, Catch Me If You Can. So this guy plays, you know, he just plays a character who he wants to be. So it gives an opportunity for us to describe who we want to be. You know, are we communication consultants? Are we storytellers? Are we brand consultants? I think it's a great opportunity over there. You know, I love to experiment over there and actually check people's reactions.
So you don't have to be typecasted, is what you're saying. But you know, this segues into the next thing I want to talk about. A lot of young people, millennials, they come into this industry thinking there's, you know, a year or two and my life is set, maybe I'll retire by 40 and everything's going to be great after that. And then they're disappointed really soon after that. Because like you all have been saying, there's a mundane part to it. There's a lot of back-end processes that need to be followed through. But Karan, if I could start with you, you have stayed. So how have you managed to fight that attrition rate that seems to be going on here?
I think I'll speak for myself because a lot of people over there would have seen a lot more attrition than we would have. So I think what's great about PR is that it gives you the potential to expand its scope, you know, depending on the industry, the client, the person you're dealing with, the stakeholders you're dealing with. And, you know, a lot of forums, a lot of people say, you know, it's not just about media relations. And yes, it's not just about media relations. There's a lot more that you can do. You know, whether it's social, digital, it's any kind of partnerships. You know, if you have if your brain's working constantly, you can expand the scope of what you can do. You know, for example, I have a client and they launched a product, and suddenly we realized that this product's name is similar to a restaurant's name in Hostas in Delhi. And we were like, wait, you know, there's an opportunity over here. We got to do something about it. And you know, you can strike a partnership with them, and you know, so that's also something what you can do. So what I'm saying is that you can shape what you want to do. You can test your limits. You can, you know, have your own freedom while thinking differently.
Like you're also saying there are a lot of myths about PR that exist, and you can break out with, do your own thing, be creative. It doesn't have to be a 9-to-5 boring job, and I know it's never a 9-to-5 job, so but you know what I mean. It's not a regular job. You can do your own creative thing. Neha?
I think it's anything but a 9-to-5 boring job, and that is the USP of PR, if you really ask me, because I don't think you can ever get bored when you're doing PR, because every day, on an ongoing basis, parallel to one client, you have 5 others who are from 5 different industries, and you get to learn so much more, which is why each and every year gets more and more interesting, because you develop these new expertise. You find new clients, there's so many opportunities. So for me, the story was starting from one city, then moving on beyond that city, exploring the rest of the country, then saying what's stopping us, let's look at global clients as well. So every day there's a new challenge, there's a new opportunity. And the good news is there is no bias as such anymore in the industry where they do not hire young people. And I always had that fear when I started out that, okay, who's going to take me seriously? I'm just 28 or 27. But that was wrong. Because I think as long as you add value on the table, people respect that, and there's so much work out there, so much exciting work out there. So the interest levels just grow year on year, and it's anything but a boring environment.
And he also says that it's a myth to consider that if you're young, you're not taken seriously. Like you, for instance, you started your own company at such a young age. So if you have the depth there, the image is
absolutely. And I think that there's a trick out there. So what you need to do is, because you start young and you have very limited time to catch up with the rest, you choose a specialization. And you just deep dive into that. So what we did with WordsWork was we chose to specialize largely in sports and luxury. And we just deep dive into it where we just picked up more and more clients from the same sector. So that within a span of say 5 years, and it's been almost 6 years now, we have a good roster of clients, and then they do take you seriously because they know that they know what they're doing. But if we try to become generalized at that young age, then you're spreading yourself too thin and you don't get that experience.
It's another hot controversial topic being generalist versus specialized in a particular thing. We'll come to that.
Sure.
But Roli, coming from your diverse experience, you're working in Singapore, what do you think are the myths? I mean, it could cut across the country barrier as well. Some of the myths that exist in PR.
My favorite is if you ask somebody, why would you want to join PR? So they say, I like to meet people. I say to them, if you like to meet people, then you should have been an airline stewardess. This is not a profession just to meet people. I think, as Ishan was saying, we were discussing one of us yesterday, I think the industry has grown beyond the name. So there is definitely a need for rebranding this industry. It's not public relations, it's so much more. We've used a variety of different adjectives here to describe the profession. It's so much more today. The second thing I would say is there's probably a need to remove the glamour from the industry. Keep it aside. This is probably one of the most hardworking set of professionals you'll ever meet. So I would say there is a need to educate people about what is everyday PR like. Sometimes people come into this profession with these misconceptions of, oh, I'm going to have a cool life. I'm going to interact with the leadership. I'll probably get invited to all the cool parties. No, it's not this. It's actually being able to research, predict, analyze, remain calm under pressure, be able to do 1,000 things at one time, which make for a successful PR professional. So I would say dire need to rebrand the industry.
Being cool, I think that's a vein of the existence of a millennial. Ishan, what's your point of view?
Well, look at this. For us, it is very, very interesting, and a lot of publicists, a lot of millennial or young PR professionals come to us because we work in the luxury hospitality space. So travel is part of the job, and because you're working for the fanciest brands in the world, automatically I have so many people who come to us and say, well, I'm here because I want to travel. And of course, when you're working with the media or you're going to all our clients' properties, you're taking media fans, there is travel, no doubt. But like Roli said, there is so much that goes at the back end, and you've got to have that intent to work that hard and come to terms with it. And it really boils down, probably to seeking what you call as value, because and the onus of value creation lies both at the employees as well as the employers end. And whether it's personal and professional development, neither of these parties can separate from it. And we encourage our colleagues to read as much as possible, and and come back and talk about it, and focus on nurturing them. For example, we had this conference happening, so we announced that anybody who wants to go, we pay for it. So a lot of employers today are not investing in young PR millennials, assuming that they would leave, and a lot of millennials are not investing themselves in either. So I think you know, a lot of myths about media relations, about content, for example, they're a direct result of people not focusing, or not being clear, or millennials not being clear in why they are, you know, getting into PR. I think Roli had articulated earlier about the three tenets of you know, the strategic thinking and engagement. And I think that's just clear thinking, and every person before getting into this business needs to answer that for himself or himself. And automatically the tenure would then, in our opinion, be much longer.
But you're saying the myths exist not only with the millennials but also with their employers.
Absolutely. Because you're also looking at the trend, right? If you're talking, and we'll get to that in the end, perhaps, but if you're looking at attrition, so it is an industry-wide recognized fact that there is an X percentage of attrition. But let me also say that, and you know, Neha and on one of the phone calls we were chatting that we don't suffer that problem. I've never had a person who's left us in the PR space, and Neha has had a similar experience. So, so it's really not general opinion.
But why do you think that is? Is it because you think the bosses also younger people, so they look, the employees are looking at the employer thinking, oh, he or she can be my friend and not strictly a boss-employee relationship?
Sure, and it's more modern collective work. And I'm not saying that our seniors aren't doing that. In fact, they've set a platform for it. But you know, in smaller, younger firms today, the bosses are getting out of their cabins and working hands-on with the team every single day and learning together, working at pitches together, doing media together, doing events together. Everything is, you know, it's unlike a system where there is one person or two people who are doing all the core groundwork, and then there are another two people who are going and entertaining or enjoying the perks or the glamour, as we discussed earlier. I wouldn't go to say that there is no glamour. Of course there is. And the pull of the brand as well, because I think a large the brand that you will ultimately end up working with plays a pivotal role in the selection of where you will work. And you know, when we are hiring and people come to us, we absolutely talk about the brands that we work with and use that as a tool to interest them in working with us.
Right. Any myth busters that the audience would like to share with this panel about PR and what it means?
It's time to be proud of what we do.
Okay, it's time to be proud of what we do. But what's the myth?
There is no myth. It's like any other profession. Every profession has a downside, and so has ours. If we don't pride ourselves in what we do, we're never going to succeed. Young, old, whatever. So I like what Neha says. You know, every moment you've got to enjoy it. You've got to enjoy working at this profession. Only those people who be in here. Otherwise, opt out. Right?
Neha, do you want to share something like Yasmin was saying? You have not seen people quitting, so basically the myths that they probably came in with, their expectations myths, somewhere there's been a match.
Absolutely. I think the idea is, you know, it's in a way an advantage when you're a younger and more lean and agile organization, because you can afford to do away with a lot of things which are not that great when you get into the profession. Basic things like internal report cards, systems and processes, and we're all smiling when we hear this, because when it comes to a younger organization, what we try to do is leave behind the baggage which is unnecessary and let the professionals focus on the core of what this business is, which is coming up with creative work for your clients. That's all it is at the end of the day. And also, we all realize, because we've been there very recently, is that everyone is super ambitious and they want to get there really, really fast. And you get it because even you wanted to get there really, really fast. So the idea is to expose them as soon as possible to every aspect of the profession. So why not engage a person who's just joined in a pitch and let them experience winning that pitch? That is the first high you get as an entrepreneur. And if you can share that with your employees, that's what makes them stick. What also makes them stick is what you correctly said, that you need to get your hands dirty too. And what one has to do is, we are a designation-free organization. Very few people, when I go into a client meeting, I really enjoy it sometimes because there's no designation on the card, so they just treat you as anyone else from the organization, and it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Even the client, they just want the work done, they want creative ideas coming in. And when your employees see that you're genuinely treating yourself as an equal with them, getting your hands dirty, everyone's doing the same thing. I still send out press releases, I still am making media calls, and they also, on the other hand, get the opportunity to travel abroad with media for the fan trip. There are people in our organizations who got their passports made in front of me and got to travel for the first time, which is a big deal for a person who's 25 or 26. So I think if you can share that excitement that you're feeling, and also the gap is really bridged because they can relate to you, like you correctly said, there's no reason for them to. You give them an entrepreneurial experience at a very early age, and then that makes them want to stay. They're excited about it.
But you know, it's good to be ambitious. Sometimes it's insatiable though. And it's possible maybe in smaller organizations like this to be more cohesive. But in a bigger organization, it's likely to be a little more regimented, which is everywhere. So this part of the attrition that comes in because you want something, and the first time I don't get it, most people would like to give it another 2 years. But sometimes it happens, okay, I'm not getting it, this is not enough for me, I'm better than this, and I quit. Is that the reason, is the main reason behind this huge, high attrition rate?
See, my perspective is that we're living in an age where we get a lot of instant gratification. We get like virtual fans very quickly. You make an abroad trip, put up pictures on Facebook, you get 200 likes. You throw a few peels of ice on you get a lot of views to it. You do that's followed by a book bucket challenge. So there's a lot of fandom for individuals over there, which you get very quickly in the virtual world. And what it also means is it's an open world of possibilities out there, and you can actually do anything. Anything means anything. A kid who's dancing brilliantly suddenly becomes a hero. So what I'm trying to say is that even in organizations today, everyone believes that they're here to make a difference, and they want a purpose to be associated with. In fact, even the MSL group has right now done a study which shows that millennials want to be associated with a company that is, that has a purpose and that's contributing to the society. And I think it's and again, this is something that Roli, you had mentioned yesterday, that this is something that organizations need to work better, especially considering the number of millennials out there that work with them, understand the diverse set of skill sets they bring to the table, treat those skill sets for their own skill sets, and reward them on that basis. And yes, I mean, establish that purpose, why they are there. And I think probably that's one route of getting them fixated into a plan, and so that they go and get it.
I'd like to add a little bit to what Karan and Neha also just said, and I think it's a great time to talk about domain expertise, because especially taking cue from what Karan said about a sense of purpose, and I see directly for THRs, and I'm sure Neha does for him as well. I think that's a good thing because especially at a young, early start stage, instead of very generalist we are, if you're building domain expertise, whatever it may be, for Neha it's sports, for us it's hospitality, I think that sense of purpose already fulfills a sense of professional development that a person believes that he's achieving over every semester of tenure with the firm. We know today, for example, that if someone's worked for us for 2 years, he understands by and large the big picture of hospitality industry in India from various layers of it, whether it's sales or development or challenges or economical or geopolitical challenges of any kind. And I think that sense of greater understanding of a particular domain not only builds tenure, but also leads to creative thinking and new ideation. So I'm a big believer in that, absolutely.
And both of you seem to be suggesting that, as he said, instant gratification also leads to disappointment very quickly. But Gala's saying that if it's a more specialized thing and you set them clear targets, this is what you can achieve, then that disappointment is sort of taken care because they know this is what they're working towards. But really, I want to ask you, is this attrition thing a problem across geographical boundaries as well?
Yeah, I would say pretty similar. I don't think what you're seeing in India is any different. I have seen a lot of people actually using this probably as a foundation in the